Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Cinderella, a young woman with a pure heart, lives a modest but dreamy life in a small town where everyone knows everyone else. Marked by financial difficulties and loneliness, she accepts a marriage contract with a mysterious man she barely knows, hoping to secure stability for herself and her family. At first glance, her husband appears to be a vagabond, a simple man without fortune or social standing. He is discreet, charming in his own way, but seems strangely secretive about his past. Cinderella, with her kindness and naivete, gradually becomes attached to him, unaware that this marriage, initially motivated by pragmatic need, will be the key to unexpected upheavals in her life. As the days go by, she discovers clues, details of his past life, gestures that betray a taste for luxury, and a surprisingly self-assured demeanor. Then comes the shock: her husband is not the vagabond he claims to be, but an influential billionaire, heir to a colossal fortune and an industrial empire no one had suspected. The revelation shatters Cinderella. Everything she thought she knew about her marriage and her future crumbles. But instead of feeling betrayed, she is faced with a choice: flee from this sudden luxury and the complexity of this man, or get to know the man she married behind the veil of wealth and power, and discover true love in a world that previously seemed unattainable. The arranged marriage thus transforms into an adventure where love, trust, and truth intertwine with luxury, secrets, and unexpected emotions. What began as a pragmatic arrangement becomes a story of passion, surprises, and revelations that will forever change Cinderella's destiny. Cinderella Harper had always lived in the shadow of her dreams. An orphan since her teens, she took care of her little sister and her sick grandmother. The days passed by with odd jobs, errands, and home care, and the word future seemed to exist only in the fairy tales she read at night, under the flickering light of an old lamp. One winter morning, while delivering bread to the neighborhood residents, an unexpected letter changed everything. A marriage proposal, but not a love match. A strict contract, dictating the terms of their cohabitation, their mutual obligations, and even matters of money. Her future husband, a certain Ethan West, claimed to be a simple man, a vagabond with modest habits. At first glance, the proposal seemed strange, almost laughable. But for Cinderella, who was struggling with bills and debts, this marriage represented a lifeline. She accepted, not out of love, but out of necessity. The wedding day arrived, in a small town hall. Ethan West was exactly as described: simple, reserved, almost unassuming, dressed in a clean but worn suit, with deep eyes and a rare smile. Despite the lack of pomp and glamour, Cinderella felt a strange serenity. Perhaps this marriage wouldn't be so difficult after all. Yet, behind this apparent calm, Ethan hid a secret he wasn't ready to reveal. A secret that would transform Cinderella Harper, a pragmatic and hardworking young woman, into the heroine of a story neither she nor the world had imagined. As she slipped her hand into Ethan's, a shiver of the unknown ran through her. She didn't yet know that this simple gesture sealed the beginning of a life where wealth, mystery, and love would intertwine in unexpected ways. The first few days of marriage were strangely peaceful. Cinderella was getting used to Ethan's quiet presence, and despite his apparent simplicity, he was surprisingly attentive. He noted every detail of her daily life, anticipated her needs, and seemed to understand her emotions before she even expressed them. Yet, a few strange details caught his attention. An old but luxurious watch that far exceeded his supposedly modest style. Mysterious phone calls Ethan took from another room, speaking with an assurance and authority that betrayed a position of power. And, above all, words he let slip inadvertently, phrases like, "We need to get the company ready for tomorrow's meeting," or "I need the office to be ready on time," words that had nothing to do with the life of a mere vagabond. Cinderella, intrigued but cautious, chose to say nothing. She had agreed to this marriage for her safety and that of her family, and she did not want to spoil this fragile balance with unfounded suspicions. One evening, while tidying up the house after dinner, she discovered a small leather notebook hidden under the sofa. It belonged to Ethan and was filled with notes, orders, and complex business plans. Each page revealed a world of luxury, power, and responsibility, a universe that the vagabond she had married couldn't simply have invented. A mixture of fear and excitement washed over Cinderella. She realized that her husband was far from who he claimed to be. The burning question now consumed her was, why was Ethan hiding his true identity from her? And above all, what would she do if she discovered she was married to an immensely wealthy and influential man? That night, she went to bed in silence, her mind swirling with questions, unaware that this discovery was only the beginning of a series of revelations that would change her life forever. In the days that followed, Cinderella increasingly noticed the contradictions in her husband's life. Ethan seemed to know details about local affairs, market trends, and influential contacts that a mere vagrant could not possess. One afternoon, while she was making tea in the kitchen, she heard her phone vibrate with an unusual call. Ethan, looking hurried but composed, answered. The conversation lasted a few minutes, and the words she overheard made her head spin. Make sure the private jet is ready for tomorrow's meeting. Yes, I want everything checked before I arrive. After the call, he turned to her, smiling with the same simplicity that had charmed her on the first day, and said, "Excuse me, I had work to take care of." Cinderella felt her heart beat faster. She decided it was time to confront Ethan, but without making a direct accusation. "Ethan, I don't mean to be nosy, but you're not exactly who you claim to be, are you?" Ethan looked at her, his deep eyes shining with an emotion she didn't recognize. After a long silence, he sighed and sat down beside her. "You're right, Cinderella. I've never been a vagabond. I wanted to know you without the influence of my wealth and my name. I am." He paused, as if weighing each word. "I am the heir to an industrial empire. I am a billionaire. And I wanted you to love me for me, not for my money." Cinderella recoiled slightly, shocked. The room seemed to be spinning around her. Everything she thought she knew about her marriage, her husband, and her future life had just crumbled. Yet, instead of anger, a mixture of fascination and mistrust seized her. She finally saw the man behind the veil of simplicity, but she had to decide, could she accept this truth and get to know the man Ethan really was? That evening, as she lay down, Cinderella realized that her life had just changed forever. A marriage contract, which she had accepted out of necessity, had become the beginning of a story where wealth, love, and secrets would intertwine irresistibly. The next morning, Cinderella woke up with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Ethan's revelation had shaken her, but she was also eager to discover the world he had carefully hidden. They left their modest home for an upscale neighborhood where Ethan claimed to have business to attend to. On every corner, Cinderella noticed luxury cars, imposing buildings, and shop windows she had only ever seen in magazines. The world Ethan inhabited seemed unreal. Arriving at his office, a gleaming skyscraper overlooking the city, Cinderella felt her heart pound in her chest. The elegantly dressed employees greeted her respectfully, bowing slightly before Ethan. This silent respect, this natural authority her husband possessed, left Cinderella both impressed and intimidated. "Don't worry," Ethan said, seeing her expression. "All of this may seem overwhelming, but you'll get used to it. I just wanted you to see that my world is different from what you imagined." As they walked through the gleaming corridors and high-tech offices, Cinderella felt a mixture of emotions. She admired the power and control Ethan wielded, but she also wondered if she could ever feel like she belonged there. That evening, back at home, Ethan suggested an intimate dinner. Through their conversations, he spoke to her about his plans, his responsibilities, but above all, about his vision for the life they could share together. "I never wanted my wealth to become a wall between us," he confided. "I want you by my side, not for what I possess, but for what we can build together." Cinderella, touched by his sincerity, began to see the man she had married in a new light. He was no longer just the mysterious tramp of their marriage contract, but a complex, powerful, and deeply human man. For the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of hope. Despite the secrets and differences, perhaps true love could blossom in this unexpected marriage. The following days plunged Cinderella into a whirlwind of emotions and discoveries. While Ethan's world seemed fascinating, it was not without its challenges. The responsibilities associated with his fortune and industrial empire were immense, and Cinderella was beginning to realize that her life extended far beyond what she had imagined. At a luncheon in a luxury restaurant, Ethan introduced Cinderella to some of his associates. Curious and sometimes envious glances weighed on her, but she maintained her composure, responding with politeness and confidence. Although she was intimidated by these circles of power, a feeling of pride washed over her. She was now the equal of influential men and women, married to the man she loved. However, things weren't simple. Rumors about the unexpected marriage were already circulating in certain financial circles. Some believed Cinderella was only there to take advantage of Ethan's wealth, and the whispers were beginning to reach her ears. She felt a mixture of anger and frustration. How could she prove she wasn't motivated by money when everyone around her seemed to accuse her of greed? Ethan, aware of her concerns, took her hand one evening as they strolled in the garden of their luxurious property. "I know this world can be cruel," he murmured. "But I know you, Cinderella. I know your heart is pure, and that's why I chose you. It doesn't matter what others say." These words deeply moved Cinderella. She understood that this marriage would be more than just money or appearances. Trust and sincerity were now the cornerstones of their relationship, and she had to learn to navigate this new world with courage and determination. But fate still had surprises in store. In the shadows, some of Ethan's rivals were watching closely, ready to exploit any weakness. Cinderella would soon discover that behind the luxury and smiles lay intrigue, jealousy, and dangerous secrets. And so, her adventure, which began as a simple marriage of convenience, transformed into a true test of strength between love, power, and loyalty. Cinderella was beginning to feel the pressure of the world she had just entered. Although her husband had promised her support and trust, some members of Ethan's circle did not look favorably upon the sudden rise of this modest young woman in their circle of power and wealth. At a charity gala held in one of the city's most prestigious residences, Cinderella faced her first hostile stares. Murmurs rippled through the room as she entered, dressed in an elegant gown but far from the standards of the usual guests. "Who is she? Just a contract bride, really?" The words were barely veiled, but they pierced her heart. Yet Cinderella remained unfazed. With remarkable composure, she introduced herself to the guests, engaged in conversations, and displayed politeness but self-assurance. She wanted to show that she wasn't an intruder, but a woman capable of holding her own beside Ethan. After the gala, Ethan took her aside into the garden illuminated by twinkling lamps. "I'm proud of you," he said gently. "This world may seem cruel, but you stood your ground with grace." Cinderella felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. She knew these initial obstacles were just the tip of the iceberg. To prove her worth, she would not only have to learn to navigate this world, but also understand the power plays and secret alliances that governed Ethan's every move. That same evening, as she drifted off to sleep, Cinderella realized she had changed. The shy young woman who had accepted this arranged marriage out of necessity no longer truly existed. Now, she was a partner in a world of luxury and challenges, ready to face jealousy, intrigue, and, above all, to discover the depth of Ethan's feelings. A few weeks after the gala, Cinderella began to understand that living with Ethan meant much more than simply enjoying luxury. Their marriage contract, already evolving into a relationship based on trust, would soon be tested by an unexpected event. One morning, while having breakfast in the sunlit kitchen, Cinderella received a call from one of Ethan's partners. A financial crisis was affecting one of his companies, threatening to tarnish his empire and attract critical media attention. What could have been a purely professional matter quickly became personal. Newspapers began speculating about the stability of her marriage, insinuating that Cinderella was out of place and might run away under the pressure. Cinderella felt a shiver of anxiety. She didn't want to be seen as an obstacle or a distraction for Ethan. But before she could react, Ethan entered the room. His usually calm face displayed an unusual intensity. "Cinderella," he said, placing his hand on hers, "I'm not asking you to understand the financial details, but I need you to stay by my side. Your presence reminds me why I'm fighting for this empire, for us. These words deeply touched Cinderella. She realized that their relationship was not just about secrets or luxury, but about mutual support in difficult times. That evening, after a long meeting with his associates, Ethan invited Cinderella for a walk in the gardens of their residence. The moon softly illuminated the landscape, and the silence between them was soothing. "We'll get through this storm together," Ethan murmured. "No matter what others say or think." Cinderella felt a new strength within her. The marriage contract she had accepted out of necessity had become a true union, founded on trust, respect, and the beginnings of genuine love. She understood that trials would only strengthen their bond if she dared to fully commit. That night, she fell asleep with a feeling of confidence and determination. She was no longer the shy young woman of before, but a companion ready to face storms alongside the man she had married. As the weeks went by, Cinderella became more and more familiar with Ethan's luxurious and demanding world. She began to understand that her role was not limited to being an elegant wife. She also had to know how to navigate the intrigues, affairs, and social expectations that came with this life. One afternoon, Ethan took her to a strategic meeting with his key partners. Cinderella, though a little nervous, listened attentively, taking notes and asking insightful questions. To her surprise, several partners were impressed by her foresight and ability to quickly grasp the issues. Some even whispered that her intuition brought a fresh perspective to the company. But this chapter of their lives was not without its surprises. During a private dinner, Ethan revealed a part of his past that no one knew: the sacrifices he had made to build his empire, the betrayals he had suffered, and the enemies he had made along the way. Cinderella realized that behind her husband's charming smile lay exceptional strength and resilience, forged by years of adversity. She herself was beginning to evolve. The doubts and intimidation of the beginning had given way to a new confidence. She felt capable of standing up to rumors, of earning the respect of rivals, and even of actively contributing to certain decisions within the company. One evening, returning from a particularly tense meeting, Ethan took her in his arms and whispered, "I knew you were special, Cinderella. But every day you surprise me more." These words reinforced her feeling that their marriage went far beyond a simple contract. What they shared became a true alliance, blending love, respect, and shared ambitions. Yet, in the shadows, some of Ethan's enemies were beginning to maneuver. Cinderella was still unaware that dangerous secrets, linked to jealous rivals and disloyal partners, would soon put their marriage and their empire to the test. Everything seemed perfect in Ethan and Cinderella's world, but behind the luxury and smiles, a silent storm was brewing. Influential newspapers and some jealous partners were beginning to spread rumors about the unexpected marriage, insinuating that Cinderella was merely an opportunist who had come to take advantage of Ethan's fortune. One morning, Cinderella received an anonymous message: "Everyone will soon know who you really are." Her heart sank. She realized that it wasn't just her reputation that was at stake, but also that of her husband and his empire. Upon learning of the threat, Ethan remained calm but determined. "We've been through much worse," he said, taking her hand. "And I know you're by my side, not for the money, but for us. This scandal won't tear us apart." But the following weeks were trying. Paparazzi began to follow their every move, and articles were published, a mix of lies and innuendo. Some of Ethan's associates became cold, some partners hesitated to sign new contracts. Cinderella felt the weight of their world on her shoulders, but instead of running away, she decided to take a stand. With Ethan's guidance, she began to respond publicly with grace and dignity. In interviews, she spoke of their marriage as a true union based on love, respect, and trust, proving to everyone that the accusations were unfounded. Her sincerity and courage impressed not only the media but also Ethan's rivals. This ordeal brought the couple even closer. Ethan understood just how strong Cinderella was, capable of standing up to the outside world and defending their marriage and their empire. Cinderella, for her part, realized that she wasn't just a billionaire's wife, but an equal partner, ready to weather any storm by his side. At night, as they gazed at the illuminated city from the balcony of their residence, Ethan murmured, "You have transformed my life, Cinderella. And I know now that our love can overcome anything." Cinderella smiled, sensing that despite the threats and scandals, their bond was stronger than ever. But she didn't yet know that the real challenge had yet to come, and that their mutual trust would be tested in unexpected ways. The scandal had reached its peak. Newspapers were churning out articles, rumors were spreading like wildfire, and some partners were threatening to withdraw. Yet, Cinderella and Ethan remained united, facing the challenge together with renewed confidence. One evening, during a press conference organized to clarify the situation, Cinderella spoke. Her gaze was firm, her tone assured. "I'm not here to take advantage of anything. I married Ethan for who he is, a good, fair, and trustworthy man. We are a couple, not defined by money or status, but by love and mutual respect." The journalists, surprised by her sincerity and courage, calmed down. Cinderella's words resonated far beyond the room. The rumors began to die down, replaced by stories of admiration and respect for the couple. Ethan, standing beside her, looked at her with eyes shining with pride. "You've proven what I've always known," he murmured. "That we're strong together." In the days that followed, their lives found a new harmony. The partners and associates who had doubted the couple reconciled, impressed by the strength and unity they had demonstrated. The marriage contract, which had begun as a necessity, had transformed into a true union, based on trust, love, and loyalty. Cinderella, now confident and self-assured, discovered a happiness she had never imagined. She had not only found a husband, but an equal partner, capable of sharing joys, challenges, and responsibilities. Ethan, the mysterious vagabond turned billionaire, and Cinderella, the modest young woman who became his confidant and ally, had weathered storms, scandals, and revelations. Together, they had proven that true love could triumph over all trials, transforming their marriage of convenience into a modern-day fairy tale of courage, passion, and shared happiness. As night fell on their illuminated home, Cinderella and Ethan held hands, gazing into the future with a knowing smile. They knew now that nothing could separate them, and that every challenge would be an opportunity to strengthen their bond. The marriage contract had become the most beautiful of fairy tales, where wealth, secrecy, and love had finally come together to create their own legend.